Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and I'm here with Michael Russi in UFOs Here and Now, or Flying Saucers Here and Now. Sorry about that. Greetings, Michael. How are you?
I'm excellent, and I'm very excited about tonight's program. I think what enthusiasts and the general public at large is about to hear has not been talked about at all, has been classified, and much of what I'm going to share is maybe information that they are hearing first and foremost. And so I would really like to get on with this information.
Great. I'd love to hear it.
Okay, well, let's start with what's happening presently. Presently, as we know, there have been congressional investigations into either UAP or UFO phenomenon.
Right.
Unfortunately, now they've released a bunch of new photos. I think it was yesterday or today. While some of the photos are impressive, some are grainy, they're mediocre at best. Some of them not really overwhelming, let's put it that way. There could be a lot of things. Overall, it's not anything to really enlighten the public. There are some, that are mysterious, to say the least. But there's been congressional pushback against lawmakers. This is updated information advocating full transparency for what's really going on or what the government is hiding. The frustration is that agencies continue to hold highly classified raw evidence or unedited information back from the congressional hearing on what they would like to know. They are also avoiding releasing vital written reports, and this is essential, on the most impressive cases. Now, let me say this, as a longtime UFO investigator, I agree that they are doing this, as the president himself announced, and letting himself off the hook, frankly. We're going to release a bunch of photos, a bunch of photography, photographic information, and let the public decide for themselves, and this is a quote, what the hell is going on? So while it appears that they're being honest and forthcoming with many UFO sightings, they're not releasing any specific written information on what some of the classic cases that have gone unresolved all of these years and even till today are. They're taking themselves more or less out of the picture. He's basically claiming, let the public decide for themselves. I don't know if you heard this statement from him. That's what he is saying. So, like everything else going on right now, there's clearly a direct avoidance. They're not specifically making announcements one way or the other as to what the government believes. So there's a lot of disappointment right there at the moment in terms of what disclosure really is. Let me emphasize, some of the photographic evidence is very impressive, but a lot of it is grainy, could be a lot of things, and the most impressive photographic evidence appears to be, according to congressional lawmakers, being clearly withheld. So there's a lot of disappointment here at this point. But while I give the president credit for addressing the issue in a mainstream way, it's once again, the public is not being told everything, and they really should be. There's the second thing I'd like to say very clearly. I'd like to make a tribute to a UFO investigator by the name of Jenny Randles. Are you familiar with him? With her, rather?
I read her book. She did a lot of book about encounters, if I remember correctly.
Yes. I'd like to make a tribute to her. done a deep dive into her history, into her work, and she is a dedicated UFO explorer, investigator, I think almost 40 years. And she's been, from what I can tell, she's been very honest, very dedicated. And I would like to dedicate this program to Jenny. I happened to speak to her once on the phone. She's from England. Yes, she's from England. A wonderful person. And you could see after all these years of exploring the phenomenon, she's still incredibly invigorated and destined to know the truth. So I'd like to dedicate this program to her if I can.
That'd be fantastic. Of course you can.
Now, the second thing I'd like to address is the latest mystery concerning the Boogosphere. The Boogosphere is, for those who don't know, is a mysterious, seamless metallic orb that has sparked a viral UFO and ancient technology debate after being discovered in Colombia, Bogotá, Colombia, in March of 2025, after crashing through power lines in Colombia. For over a year, it sparked intense UFO speculation. Locals reported that the orb zigzagged through the sky and behaving erratically before falling to the ground. Studies are ongoing. Supposedly, the object shows no welds or joints. The sphere has a mysterious symbols carved on its surface. Jose Luis Velasquez, who inspected the object, noted that he has never seen anything like it. Now, there were X-rays taken. High-resolution X-rays so far reveal a complex internal geometry, multi-layered, and variable in densities. NASA has just released the clearest X-ray images ever captured of the mysterious Boogosphere. It reveals intricate patterns that resemble Sanskrit and an ancient classified Indo-Aryan language. It's serving primarily as a primary language of Hinduism and a foundational language of Buddhism. Investigators are ongoing with the UFO, maintaining its authentic source, while there are others skeptical in terms of the examination. Stephen Greer, a longtime UFO investigator, has also entered the picture. He believes it is totally authentic, and he feels that ongoing examination needs to continue. So far, there's no conclusion as to what this object is. Another interesting aspect of it, when they first found it, it weighed approximately 2.4 pounds. Supposedly, when they brought it to the laboratory, continued to examine it, the thing actually grew in weight to another 4 pounds and 5 centimeters, whatever the case might be. So the objects actually expanded for reasons unknown. Some feel that it has somewhat of some kind of physical quality to it. So far, that's as much information as we have been able to glean. The examinations are ongoing. So we don't know what this mystery may reveal. I find it very interesting. There were also very unusual designs on the surface of the object, which is hard-pressed that it could be any kind of hoax. The designs also resemble some kind of Hindu glyphics of some kind of hieroglyphics from a Hindu source. So that's all we know at this point. So the examination is ongoing, and as soon as we learn more, if I have the opportunity, I'll certainly reveal it to you.
Thank you. And I watched the video you sent to me, and I researched it a little bit on my own. The community seems to be torn as to the authenticity of this object. because there are many indications that people have detected of fraud. There are some images of the object flying from trees where computer analysis shows that there are strings attached. So they were basically the old pie plate UFOs, except they were ball. People have detected drones flying with invisible string like fishing line. So they found the drones and they found the fishing line as well on computer images. So I don't know. I'm not qualified to determine the authenticity of the evidence. I don't know Sanskrit. I don't know Proto-Hindu. I don't know how they would fit in with these systems of belief or why the inscriptions are there or what they mean. But I'm keeping my eyes open to all possibilities at this point. I'm excited about the fact that this is happening and people are debating it. One of the things I've noticed about the phenomenon in my years of studying it was that it continuously points to the fact that there's more to our world than we believe or we've been thought. So in that case, whether it's fraud or real, it's fulfilling its function of making us seek a greater understanding.
Well, it has some unusual features, and what's interesting here is, and a key name which I failed to mention, Bob Lazar has also entered the case. Now, for what I've been able to glean from this is, he too feels that the object is authentic. Yes, there have been claims of fraud, that this is really not an alien object of any kind. Critics are coming out with this information. However, Bob Lazar, as well as Stephen Greer and Jose, although in all honesty, Jose has been fooled before. Jose Velasquez is probably Brazil's key, South American key UFO investigator. He's been fooled before by certain cases. But here we have experts in the field, including Bob Lazar, who seem to feel the object still has some very unusual, undefined features to it that solidify its authenticity. So yes, there are critics as to what exactly it may be. So the case is not, there hasn't been a conclusion either way. I tend to think that it's authentic because of certain features to it that would be a little difficult to produce, but we will see. So that's where we are with the Boogosphere case. Nevertheless, whether it's authentic or not, it's heightened the public's awareness of the UFO phenomenon. But what I would like to share are some cases that are, as of this time, are unsolved. No one knows. No one has determined what's really happened. No one has made any solid determination. The public, if they're not fully aware of it, should know about these cases. These are classic cases that remain classified and undefined. And I'd like to start off with the Rendlesham UFO case, which till this day remains unsolved. It's often called... Pardon me?
Before you do, I want to touch on something that you were saying earlier as well with the disclosure. I didn't watch every single minute of the committee. I throughout the entire investigation, and I was impressed by the lack of new information. So if you're a student of this phenomenon or this mystery, there was nothing really new. The pictures have all been seen before, maybe not the exact same pictures, but very similar pictures. And the speculations have been the same. And also the information about how this is classified and owned mostly by private industries. And it's very compartmentalized, so it's difficult to get the information. Those disclosures too are very old. So I know it was a good step forward, I believe. And I too applaud the current administration for taking a step forward. But I feel that it wasn't really enough. It was to placate rather than to instruct and inform or open the eyes of anybody in particular.
Well, you're absolutely correct. and there's many UFO investigators who are a bit disappointed at this stage. We see what the government is doing, and if in the future they release some truly surprising and mysterious film, if you will, documentation, I'm sure we'll be the first to acknowledge that. But so far, a total lack of commitment, first of all, and this is purposeful. And there's many on the congressional committee that I have read are somewhat disappointed because, this is the easy way out for the government, frankly. And again, there is pushback. There is pushback by certain insiders in the government that don't want too much released. That may cause perhaps further controversy. There's a lot of shenanigans still going on. So we waited 70 years, 60 years, 70 years for this moment. And so far, in my opinion anyway, and I know in the opinion of others, has been a little bit disappointing. But on we go. But I'd like to talk about the unsolved, shocking cases, and I don't use that term lightly, as far as our UFO history that the public needs to know about. Right. And the first is the Rendlesham UFO case, which remains unsolved. Now, it's often been called Britain's Roswell. In December 1980, in Suffolk, England, over several nights, the United States Air Force personnel stationed at RAF reported unexplained lights in the Rendlesham Forest. The most famous encounter involved Base Commander Colonel Charles Halt, who led the investigation into the forest and recorded audio of his team witnessing a red glowing orb splitting apart, as well as picking up unexplained radiation. A perfect triangle-like landing gear was also discovered. Now, just for a moment, I'd like to say this. A couple of years ago, I was able to get that actual audio recording of the military as they transverse the forest trying to find this UFO, which apparently has landed, and with their reaction. It's quite extraordinary. And I don't know if you can still get it, but if we can, we should be listening to it because it's quite enthralling, to say the least. And so it was recorded as it happened, as they marched through the forest trying to find this thing. The English government hesitated to pursue the case when it was revealed. Later, that nuclear weapons were being stored there, and that may be the reason why the English government was hesitant to pursue the case any further, which many in the military weren't aware of. That's one of the official explanations, by the way, by both the English, the RAF, and the United States has given, that there are nuclear weapons stored there. They were hesitant to make any comments further on the case. Another interesting thing is Colonel Halt. They approached him. He was interviewed at length by American and English journalists, and they questioned him. Could it have been an owl? Could it have been a barn owl that they saw, or could it have been the light from a lighthouse that was so many miles away but could be seen? And I saw his interview. He said, "I am so sick," he said, "of answering these questions. No, it was not the lighthouse. This object was red and glowing somewhat green, split apart after it landed." He said, "I'm so sick of answering these questions." You could see, as a leader, as a colonel, he was disgusted with some of these comments and these speculations that were being presented to him. So this case, which was quite extraordinary, there was radiation detected, an object that's seen over 2 nights, appeared to land, and radiation was detected on the ground. By the way, there was also a triangular figure where supposedly it had landed, which appeared obviously to be some kind of evidence of landing gear. So you had all of this evidence. Until this day, this case remains unsolved officially. So that's a very exciting case. Someone, the mainstream public at large, should know about. The second unsolved mysterious case that again remains unsolved is the Cash Landrum incident of December 29th, 1980. Betty Cash, Vicky Landrum, and their 7-year-old son encountered a hovering, diamond-shaped UFO craft emitting intense heat that was escorted by multiple U.S. military helicopters. All three witnesses later suffered severe physical injuries, resembling radiation poisoning. The heat from the UFO was so intense that it made the metal on Betty Cash's car too hot to touch. A total of 23 helicopters swarmed the object. All three witnesses experienced intense nausea and vomiting, skin blistering, hair loss, and fatigue. Now, let me say right here that everyone can see this evidence on YouTube. If they check in multiple sites addressing the case, Betty was photographed with her injuries. It's really quite remarkable. Hair loss, severe burns on her hands, and the injuries are very plain to see that something amazing and frightening had happened here. Betty Cash was the most severely affected. She was hospitalized for weeks with skin damage and internal injuries. For the first time in UFO history, and I've done some research on this and found out that, at least up to this point, it appears to be true, the U.S. government was sued over a UFO incident. The case was dismissed despite the physical evidence. Dr. Brian McClelland, Betty's physician, told the Houston Post that it was a clear textbook case of radiation poisoning. The government ultimately denied any knowledge of the helicopters, even though neighbors saw and heard the copters. Photos of the injuries and burns can be seen on the internet. So I would suggest everyone interested in this case go see for yourself, because the photos are still there, very clear and, in my opinion, undeniable. This case needs to be explored further. I don't know if the grandson is still with us. I failed to do that research. His name was Colby, I believe, and he was in the car with his mother and this dear friend when this incident took place. The object was a large black diamond-shaped object which was emitting flames. And it was a very narrow highway, and they were going one way while this object was approaching them from another spot. And there we have it, a very mysterious and frightening case, still unclassified, and no comments have been made, except, by the way, they lost their lawsuit, which I believe was in the excess of around $20 million. The reason the judge gave was that, well, the Air Force denied that any helicopters were in the area at that time, and they could not, meaning the witnesses, specifically identify, this is hard to believe, what country the helicopters came from. Now, I might also add on this case that neighbors the night before had witnessed strange unidentified objects firsthand in that area the night before and had reported them. So with all of this pretty astounding evidence. They lost the case. I think both Betty and her friend Betty and Vicky Landrum, I think they have both passed away. I am going to do some research on what happened to the grandson because I think that's important to know. So I will be doing that. But this was obvious. This was obviously an astounding case that also remains unidentified and classified. So again, these are the cases we should be talking about because for the last, as the government is saying, 60 to 70 years, all of these cases have been either in a very fragile way classified or unexplained by the officials. And it's really shocking because there are so many more that are astounding in nature that remain unexplained. So when we talk about what's happening now, for those that have been in the UFO field for all of these years, a lot of this is really quite silly. A lot of it is really quite silly. If this is what they call disclosure, we're really missing it. We're really missing it. And that's not our fault. It's the government's sly attempt to, yes, see, we are releasing. Well, I give them credit. Yes, they are releasing a ton of films, but they're not commenting one way or the other. There's no commitment that, yes, you know, there are astounding sightings here we cannot define until this day. They're not saying any of that. They're saying, let the public, as the president said, they let the public decide what the hell is going on and judge for themselves. Well, that's a very casual way of letting yourself off the hook. And that's very unfortunate.
It's something used by paranormal shows too. They basically tell you that they're going to present you the evidence and the theories, and then it's up to you to make up your mind as to the reality of everything. So I think you're right. I think it's like a cop-out.
Absolutely. You're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. And it's now Steven Spielberg has just come out with a new film, I think last week or this week, called Disclosure Day. Now the film is not a documentary, from what I understand. It's a movie, but within the confines of this movie are various cases and various evidence that has been presented or discovered throughout the years. I understand, I heard a review of the film last night on a very conservative radio station, by the way, and the reviewer said the film, it should be seen, it has a limited engagement because it is very well done and very convincing. So even though it's more or less a movie, a fictional account, it has lots of evidence in it from actual cases. They asked Steven Spielberg, what do you really think? He said, there's no doubt in my mind that we're being visited. He said, there's no doubt. He said, that's why I had to make this film. He said, I really had no intentions of even making it at first. He said, but there's no doubt in my mind that the evidence is real and it should be investigated further. So the film is starting to get some press this week, but limited engagements. But the analyst said that everybody should see it because it furthers the case that there's something going on. There's no denying that. The next case that I would like to present, and this is just as fascinating, is the Thomas Mantell mystery. 75 years later and still unsolved. And so I remember when this happened. He had 2,867 flight hours, much of it in combat. He had won the Distinguished Flying Cross medal, and he died pursuing a UFO that was seen in the skies over Goodman Army Air Force Base by countless people surrounding Fort Knox. The weather was very clear. Mantell reported confronting an object he could not identify. He said, it looks like a large metallic object of tremendous size. It is directly ahead of me, he said. He spotted the object at 14,000 feet. It should be noted that around this time, citizens on the ground were calling into Kentucky police and witnesses that the object, in fact, was also visited, by the way, by many police officers, decided to alert Fort Knox military police. Mantell continued to pursue the object up to 25,000 feet. One of Mantell's latest transmissions says he saw people sitting inside the object. At 5 p.m., communication stopped. His plane was discovered by investigators in a Shelby County field. Curiously, his seatbelt was shredded, actually shredded. The Air Force tried to say perhaps he was chasing Venus or a weather balloon. Despite the fact that Mantell was clear that it was a large metallic disc-shaped object reflecting the sun, placed at the site of his crash in 2001. And I did see a picture of this on the internet. The reason I found it quite impressive was it wasn't some small plaque. It was on a post, a very large, distinguished plaque right near his grave, telling his story. Actually mentioning that he was chasing a UFO. It's a beautiful dedication. I saw it the other day on YouTube, and I was impressed and honored for him that they would put up such a large plaque, not only dedicating his service, but acknowledging that he was chasing an unknown. Now, he also said, in spite of this, despite the Air Force's claim, despite the fact that Mantell was clear that it was a very large metallic object, disc-shaped object, reflecting the sun. So that obviously contradicts, and they've used this excuse before, by the way, that pilots that have chased unknowns, well, could have been Venus, it could have been some experimental balloon project at the time, but Mantell was very clear what this object was, and if we are to believe his final transmission, he actually saw people sitting inside the craft. Unfortunately, this obviously experienced pilot, very knowledgeable, died chasing an unknown. And another aspect of this, he was climbing to dangerous heights in his plane, and air traffic controller had cautioned him of this. And he said, "I'm just going to go a little bit further." He said, "I want to find out what this thing is." So he did climb higher beyond 15,000 feet. And now, of course, there is also the possibility, the speculation that he had passed out at some point because of, the distances he was traveling. Two other pilots, by the way, had seen the object, but they decided to turn around and backtrack and go back to base because I guess they felt at that point things were getting a little dangerous. These are the facts that I have been able to decipher up to this point in the case. I've known about it for many years. Perhaps you have too. Have you heard of this case at all?
I've heard of this case, but I don't recall the details as sharply as I would have had I looked into it deeply. But a lot of what you said seemed familiar.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's certainly one of the legendary cases of the 1950s. I've always been fascinated by it, and till this day, it remains unidentified. No one's really sure how this very experienced pilot, and from what they say, he was an ideal citizen. He had a girlfriend. He had a good family, and it remains to this day unexplained by the government, completely unexplained. So again, these are yes, yes. Hello.
I'm here. Do you have any theories on what really happened?
Yes, I do. I mean, based on this pilot's experience, the fact that he said, in spite of the Air Force's explanations, that it was not a balloon, it was a disc-shaped, silvery object. Number one. Number two, a few nights prior to this, citizens had called in saying they had also witnessed unidentified flying objects in the area. So based on all of this, thirdly, that this pilot was not only a seasoned military man with a very impressive reputation, but that he was an ideal citizen in every way. There was nothing in his background to indicate that he was a fraudster or a suspicious character of any kind, a class individual on all levels. So based on that, I think he witnessed something unexplained aerial phenomena, if you will, and something extraordinary was witnessed, and he was absolutely determined to find out what this object was. Unfortunately, this was never determined. There have been other explanations which, in all honesty, have not been verified. There are some claims that when they found his body, there were mysterious holes in his body, as if there either was penetrated by some kind of X-rays or whatever. There are other reports, unsubstantiated, that his body was really never found, and the government has been hiding this fact. Now, these are unsubstantiated claims, but I think it's important to mention them. But being that as it may, this was an ideal servant of our country, and from what we can see, an ideal citizen. He was not depressed. He was not troubled. He was an enthusiastic pilot and an enthusiastic servant of our military. So based on all of that, I feel he was chasing an unknown object. And till this day, the case, like Blue Book at the time was doing with so many cases, gave some foolish explanations. I don't believe he was chasing Venus. I'm sure you yourself know, as a long-term investigator, that explanation has weekly been given by countless, concerning countless sightings. They were probably chasing Venus, which is really laughable. But that's the explanation. The government said probably, but that wasn't an official account. So I believe he was chasing an object of artificial structure. I believe it was a silvery disk. Witnesses, citizens on the ground, had made UFO reports around the same time. So I don't know. I mean, it's hard to cling to the explanation that this was coincidence or it was a mistaken identity of what the object really was. I know I personally am hard pressed to accept those explanations. How do you feel about everything you know about it?
I feel the same way, that there's something going on that people don't want us to know about. It could be anything as mundane as they were testing experimental aircrafts, and he somehow stumbled across them and got in the way, and if there was a subsequent cover-up to it's actually an unexplained UFO phenomenon.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you. This is one of the extraordinary, mysterious cases that remain till this day, unexplained by the government, and simply hanging in the air, and no one will really ever know. But this young man, from all accounts that I've read, was an outstanding citizen and an outstanding military man of almost impeccable record. A very courageous young man, won the cross for outstanding performance, And I see no reason why this man's character should be demeaned in any way. So this is another case, mysterious case the government has never committed to, and is clearly unexplained. So here we have two cases right here that are extraordinary in nature for any number of reasons that have remained unexplained. So having presented those, now we go on to the next case, which has nationwide publicity attached to it. I remember this case very well on a personal level because I was at my grandmother's house at the time the incident happened, and this was the year 1966. And we were visiting my grandmother and having a very nice time, and they had the TV on at the same time. And as the TV's on, they were having dinner at the table, and I was looking at the TV, and Walter Cronkite appears in the evening news. What do you think he leads off as the main story? 1966, the UFO wave in Michigan. This is his lead report, which I thought. So I said, listen to this guy, listen to what's happening. And everybody, of course, turned around and watched the TV. And my father, who was always a fan of the mysterious, the anomalous, and unexplained, he said, well, listen to this. Look, to Walter Cronkite. This was his lead story, which at this time and place in America was almost unprecedented. So here we are, Walter Cronkite, the evening news. He opens the news with the UFO incident in Michigan of 1966. The case was so strong to the point that Walter Cronkite opened up his evening news with this report. Over 87 people, including local police and college students, reported seeing a strange glowing object. The U.S. Air Force attributed the phenomenon to, and we'll get into this a little later, swamp gas. You remember this? And who, by the way, J. Philip Hynek, who many years later, became a believer, also associated himself with this explanation, for which he was roundly criticized throughout the nation for this explanation, which was roundly laughed at, actually, and rejected by most of the nation. On March 20th, a local farmer, Frank Manor was his name, and his son reported seeing a metallic craft with blue and white lights land in a swampy area near a farm. Local police officers on patrol also observed the similar hovering lights in the vicinity. Hillside College, March 21st, and this was interesting, dozens of female students had their heads out the window, evidently, who observed this thing, along with the dean himself, observed a glowing object radiating intense white light near the campus for several hours. The Air Force called in J. Allen Hynek, who also felt what they were witnessing was swamp gas. The explanation became a pop culture punchline and was heavily criticized by local witnesses who said they were sure the objects were intelligently controlled. At the same time, by the way, local citizens also observed the object, which is primary in these cases. Witnesses, including police officers, to this day, say there is no logical explanation as to what happened over 2 nights. This happened over 2 nights. Officer David Severance made a drawing of the object, which is very detailed, and obviously, you can see this object, by the way, if you look this case up on the internet. There is a picture of what he stenciled, which is very accurate, by the way. It's a very good artistic description on any level. It was a dome-shaped craft with lights on 2 ends and a large light in the middle, excuse me, including landing gear. The college students were excited and certain of what they saw. Till this day, the incident remains unexplained. And again, we're involving police officers, dozens of college students, a local farmer who was along with his son, who was very certain of what they saw, and locals who had reported seeing a UFO, experiencing a UFO incident at that time in the surrounding area. This is a nationwide case, very well known, and that remains till this day unexplained. These are the types of cases that the government should be exploring. And I said, so far what we're getting is a bunch of film clips, bunch of videos, most of them recent, by the way, without looking at these legendary cases, which till this day, no explanation has been offered. So again, I think this is something that we should keep in mind while we're examining this supposed evidence that the government is now suddenly, after 70 years, presenting to us. Now, I haven't explored the recent details, but I may not want to mention a recent case where the family of the UFO landing in Los Angeles, which you may recall, I think that happened in 2024, where as they were speaking to police officers that they experienced not only a landing, but UFO occupants, translucent in nature, in their backyard that they could not explain. There is some update on that, and I don't have all the details, but I'll tell you what I know. That till this day, this family has been so harassed, if you will, that I believe they have or are in the process of moving, and they've recently been interviewed, both the children and the parents, saying they are very sure of what they saw. They completely stand by it. You may remember this case recently, where they received nationwide attention. And also, the policeman who was there interviewing them at the time in the front of the yard, because they had initially reported an object, as neighbors did, while the policeman is standing there interviewing them, a strange green-white object is coming down from the sky and landing somewhere right behind them. But this was captured on police video. The policeman who was interviewing them about their other report witnessed it. And the policeman said, I'll be honest, me and my colleagues, he said, we're a little hesitant to come and talk to you guys. He said this half-heartedly, but he said, based on what you reported. Now, so the family standing there in front of their home, being interviewed by a policeman who was reporting what they had already experienced, and while they're standing there, a green light, and you see it clearly on film, is behind them, and it's crashing, if you will, some distance away, but clear to the naked eye. Yeah, and it's captured by the film, police video. The policeman interviewing the family saw it. He saw it. So here's more evidence. Till this day, this case has not been explained. This is very recent. The family, the mother and dad, along with the children, completely stand by what they saw. What they saw was very familiar to what was seen in this mall, I believe in Florida, much later. The beings that they witnessed were translucent in nature. They didn't seem completely physical or solid, and were very tall, large heads, pointy eyes, but very tall in nature. And this is exactly the same as the images that were seen at the mall in Florida. I'm sure you must remember this case, which, by the way, as I believe this report, and I may be off one or two numbers, 15 police cars were called to this sighting. 15 showed up at this mall. Supposedly, the official explanation was that there were teenagers rioting in the mall. There was a riot there. But when you see the video, you see nothing can be further from the truth. They were running. They were running out of the mall. And a few of the images have been captured on a video, and you can see them, very translucent. There are images there of an unexplained nature. These are recent cases now. These two cases also remain unexplained. There is no official explanation for either. But these people were frightened. And I recently saw one video by a young gentleman who was there. He said, believe me, he said, we were scared. We were running. There was no riot there. And 15 police cars, that's a little heavy. And you can see films. The police cars were lined up. It seemed like the line went on forever.
Wow.
So it seems that a lot more happened there than just a group of teenagers causing a commotion. And almost everyone, without question, that was interviewed said, we saw something strange. And they saw them just step out of nowhere, out of a portal, I would imagine. And there is a film. Film has captured, and again, what I'm telling you can be verified if you explored this incident on the internet. And you can see, it's not real clear, but you can see that the translucent figures, something that were just kind of floating through the mall. I believe this is another undocumented case that should be explored even further. Obviously, law enforcement, I believe, knew something. They knew there was something going on behind just the official explanation of some unruly teenagers. And like this kid said, he said, there was no rioting there. There was no fighting there. He said, we were all running for the exits. If you see the film, that validates what he's saying. They were running out of there. Whatever they saw, they were trying to get the heck out of there. So two more recent cases that remain unexplained by the government as far as this goes. So I think we ought to add these two cases to our startling, unexplained phenomena that we're discussing this evening. But there is no doubt. If there's some evidence of either fraud or evidence of mistaken identity, I consider myself an honest UFO investigator. I would certainly admit to that. But everything I've uncovered to this point indicates these are two solid cases, recent cases, that should be explored further. And the fact that the object, bright green in nature, as far as the Los Angeles sighting was concerned, was captured on video while the cop is standing there interviewing the family. And he's joking with them. He said, I'll tell you the truth, when you first reported that there were these large unexplained beings, he said, me and my partners, he said, we were a little hesitant to come here. He was making kind of a joke out of it. It wasn't a joke, however, when this green object was captured on police video, also landing, coming to a landing, or a crash, if you will, however you want to describe it, while he's joking around with the family. So, again, things going on we cannot explain. So, unexplained cases, unexplained phenomena that still, to this day, no honest explanation has been given by either local authorities or the Air Force. So I think these are cases that need to be, not to be forgotten, certainly.
Yes.
Are you familiar with either of these cases?
No, I wasn't that familiar with them. I'd heard, again, I had basic information, but nothing as in depth as you yourself just introduced.
Okay, and everything I'm talking about, by the way, can be found on video. Of course, everything can these days. And I'd be curious to hear any other opinions of what these individuals experienced at this time. But extraordinary to say the least. So now we go to our next case. which is probably more startling than anything I've just shared. And I feel I've shared some startling cases up to this point. And this is a case where a pilot has disappeared forever, never to have been found. And this case received quite a bit of publicity when it first hit the mainstream media. An Australian pilot who vanished mid-flight after reporting a UFO. His name was, and I'll try to pronounce this correctly, Frederick Valentish. I think that's the right pronunciation, Valentish. On October 21st, 1978, the 20-year-old radioed Melbourne air traffic control about an unidentified glowing craft orbiting his Cessna 182. It was a glowing object above the Bass Strait, whatever that is. That's an area in Australia. I'm totally unfamiliar with it. Following his final haunting words, and these were recorded, "It's not an aircraft." Both he and his plane disappeared forever. The mysterious radio transmission and subsequent vanishing have fueled intense debate and speculation for decades. His final transmission. Valentish described the object as metallic and orbiting above him, noting it had a green light after reporting that his engine was coughing and beginning to run dry. It was running roughly. His microphone remained open for 17 seconds, capturing a metallic scraping sound before cutting out permanently. I remember when this was reported, they described some kind of scraping sound, very unusual. The search efforts, the Australian government launched a massive sea and air search over 2,600 kilometers, but no trace of Valentish was initially found. However, 5 years later, 1983, an engine panel belonging to the same model Cessna did wash up on a nearby King Island, though its origin remained subject for debate. Now, some of the official case of the disappearance was never fully determined to this day, though investigators have proposed several explanations. Some suggested that Valentish became disoriented, potentially flying upside down, and mistook his own plane's reflection in the water for a hovering UFO, leading to a fatal crash. Others speculate the incident was a staged suicide attempt. The air traffic controller said he will never forget the strange, crunching, scraping sound just before communication ceased. He said Valentish sounded panicked. Doesn't sound like a suicide case to me. Around the same
swamp gas.
Mhm.
Somebody's saying it's swamp gas. It has the same type of resonance. It's an answer that isn't an answer.
Yeah, well, to me, I mean, it's the same kind of silliness. You know, and you're supposedly you're an official, you're official investigators, official government statements, and their explanations are almost as silly as an alien walking through your front door itself. So here, you should be attempting to apply objective analysis of these cases. Look at what we've been getting over 70 years, and are still getting, by the way, are still getting. So around the same time, and this certainly is not the first time this has happened, a UFO flap was taking place in Australia, and cigar-shaped objects were being seen across Australia and Tasmania. Historian Reg Watson has been researching the case for many years. He said the pilot had a girlfriend came from a good family and was an absolutely well-adjusted young man. He said, and this is the investigator, he said, I have to say he had an encounter with a UFO, and I do not say that lightly. So here was a very respected historian who has made the statement. His family have erected a plaque in his honor at Cape Otway in Australia in his honor. The family tried to pursue further explanation by the government. His body and his intact airplane till this day, this is many years since 1978, I believe I said, has never been found. This man totally disappeared. His reports seem perfectly accurate and logical, and there's no explanation to this case. So these are just 5 of startling UFO cases with UFO phenomena, very obvious, that have remained unexplained by government officials. No one can really say what happened to these people, especially when you consider the Thomas Mantell case and Frederick Van Tillich, I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly, over these many, many years. The public should know, and this is not, by the way, to discount the Rendlesham UFO encounter. There's even a lot more to that encounter that maybe we could discuss next time, where the colonel actually walked up to and touched the object. And this is a colonel we're talking about. But I would say, and I'm going to continue my own investigation on this case, because I actually heard the video that the colonel made while they were trespassing through the forest on their way to trying to come in direct contact with this thing. And quite frankly, the video I heard, the colonel sounds frightened and panicked. This is a colonel with his men. This is indeed could be considered compatible, if you will, with the Roswell incident. So these are astounding cases, in my opinion, that should be re-examined. The Michigan case, we know. If you see the sketch, please go to YouTube and see the sketch that the policeman made. Very detailed. He was an excellent artist, by the way, with a screen-like structure, which is reported in most UFO cases, a dome on the top. He even described the landing gear and a light on one point of the object and a light on the other point of the object. There could be no doubt something extraordinary was met here.
And now we have to wrap up our conversation for today. But I'm very impressed with the amount of research that you've done and that you've shared. And I'm labeling this Flying Saucers Here and Now, episode 1. And I'm making it a legacy show because this used to be a zine that you and your brother used to publish back in the day. Is that correct?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And I had my own UFO experience, what I'd like to share at some future date.
I look forward to that, and I'll share some of my encounters as well. My friend, how can people...
That would be great. They can write to me at 135 Hazel Street, Clifton, New Jersey. I also do healing work, energy work, long-distance healing, and prayer work. Been doing it for many years. I've gotten some amazing reports, which I'm really humbled about. You can write to me at that address, 135 Hazel Street, Apartment 70, Clifton, New Jersey. Michael Del Russi is my name. I'm a UFO investigator and a metaphysical researcher. And I thank you so much for the opportunity to release this shocking and vital information.
And thank you for everything that you do, including reviving Flying Saucers Here and Now. And I look forward to your further episodes. Be well, my friend. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity you give to all of us to carry the torch.
My pleasure. Good night.
Good night now.